Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the witnesses here today. Mr. Pleasance, you raised serious concerns about the misuse of ADS-B data in lawsuits and fee collection. Could you elaborate on the privacy and safety risks of these practices?
Absolutely. Yeah, the ADS-B, aircraft equipped with ADS-B basically put out a signal that includes a lot of information, including the altitude, the speed of the aircraft, as well as the registration number, the N number of the aircraft. And that's essentially visible to anybody who's got a receiver to receive that data, which is very easily obtained. And we're now beginning to see increasing evidence. There was one not that long ago up in Seattle area, just north of Seattle, for example, where an individual was served with a lawsuit for an aircraft that had flown over his house. Not low, he was up at several thousand feet, but because the person on the ground is not someone who enjoys aircraft, he got the ADS-B data, was able to identify who that was flying the airplane and filed a lawsuit for harassment. And he won't win the lawsuit, but that's an example of of a burden on that pilot, where since his privacy's been violated, and he's now having to defend what was a completely legal activity.
Yeah, I'm a pilot myself, and one day a fellow pilot came over to my hangar and asked and told me a story. This is Spirit of St. Louis Airport in Chesterfield, and yeah, he flew about 2,000 feet above a plane, and he got a demand letter, not a lawsuit, but a demand letter. I understand also there are cases of airports or FBOs using ADS-B data to enforce landing fees. Is this
correct? There's an increasing prevalence of that around the country, where because the ADS-B, as I said earlier, can be collected by essentially anybody, that data is being used to assess various forms of fees. Oftentimes it's landing fees. And our concern is less that an airport charges landing fees. They're allowed to do that. We do care about them being fair and reasonable. Our bigger concern is the fact that ADS-B data is being used for that, which creates a deterrent. If you're a pilot that has not yet implemented ADS-B in your aircraft, you start to hear these stories, whether it's about these frivolous lawsuits or about collection of fees, and it becomes a disincentive to employing that technology on your aircraft. And we at AOPA are very supportive of ADS-B. It's a good technology. It does increase safety in the airspace system, and we'd like to see more people choosing to employ it. And these kinds of activities are directly against that, which in the end ultimately reduce safety.
And of course, ADS-B, and maybe you could elaborate on this, isn't required everywhere.
Correct.
But as the AOPA, as a private pilot, the FAA, we'd like to see pilots using it everywhere. But in a way, we're creating an this cottage industry monetizing, because it's my understanding that, that businesses are coming to FBOs and airports and saying, look, we'll help you enforce your landing fees with ADS-B data. We're creating an incentive for not only pilots who maybe have older planes that don't have ADS-B data now, but also planes that do, pilots to turn the ADS-B off by flipping the breaker.
Yeah, that can happen. We, of course, don't encourage that. We don't like that to happen.
Of course not.
But it does create an incentive in the system for those kinds of behaviors. And so and you're right, ADS-B is not required everywhere. There are many places out in the middle of the country that are far from other airports and far from other aircraft. And so there are still a number of airplanes that do not have ADS-B installed. And the kinds of activities that we're talking about here are absolutely a deterrent to putting that technology in.
So the AOPA has expressed concern about a patchwork of state laws to restrict ADS-B data misuse. How many and which states have implemented their own laws to address this issue?
So it's early days, but Montana, for example, just passed a law that prohibits the use of ADS-B for collecting of landing fees, or fees in general, not just landing fees. I know it's going through the legislature in Minnesota at this time. I know there was a hearing on this exact topic in Pennsylvania just yesterday. And so it's beginning to basically expand around the country. Of course, our concern is that on one hand, we're happy that the states are taking notice of this and are concerned as we are. We are also, though, concerned about a patchwork of different laws around the country that just create a level of complexity that's not as good as if this was a national approach.
So this situation begs for a federal approach?
I think so, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Gentlemen.